I need y'all to run down here. Come on, let me see you. Come on, Jehovah's head.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Village. This is another Thursday afternoon, right here on the Village Talk Show. Let's get some blessings.
Tell me how to do it, y'all. I believe, say it.
I believe you. I trust.
Come on.
In you.
Oh,
Lord, Jehovah, you.
Where y'all at? Come on.
I trust in you.
I believe, say it.
I believe.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God of
You
power.
are the God of power.
I believe, say it.
I believe.
I believe.
Do you believe?
Say it, y'all.
Do you believe? I believe. What about you?
Come on, let your feet get heavy. Let's go. Come on. Somebody make some noise in here. Come on, catch it, Jehovah.
Will you?
I trust
I trust.
in you. Oh, Lord, say it.
Oh Lord.
Jehovah, you.
I trust.
I trust in you.
I believe, say it. Everybody say it.
I believe you.
I trust.
Come on. In you. Oh Lord,
Y'all got your part over here.
Jehovah, you.
I can't hear you. Come on, say it.
I trust
Say it.
in you.
I believe, say it.
I believe.
I believe, John. I know you believe, but let me just confirm. John, do you believe?
Amen.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank you again for joining us right here on the Village Talk Show, where we meet with you on Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. You can catch us, send it to a friend, reach out, share, let us know how you're doing on 92.1 FM GD radio for Jamaica, Florida, and the Bronx. You can catch us on Gospel JA on my Facebook page at Roderick F. Daly. Our co-hostess, Joanne Bryan's Facebook page. Joanne Bryan, that's Johane. You have the great John L. Sampson's Facebook page on Andre Doman, Sophia Willisey, and on the Village Facebook page itself on the Village Talk Show. And most importantly, you can catch us on YouTube at the Village Talk Show. And again, we invite you to call in, text in, let us know what topics you're on. Send it over to Village Show 30. That's Village, not the Village, but just simply Village Show 30 at gmail.com. And our producer Andre is going to throw it up. It's right there on the screen already, as I told you if you're watching us live. Remember, the Village is all about the community, empowerment and development, where we are dedicated to empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, at any point, starting from today. Remember, success is not just spoken, it is done. And so we're all trying to do something to make ourselves success. And remember, people, when we talk about success, success is your measurement of success. And yes, there's a point where we say, well, yeah, I think there's a threshold, right, John, that you can say, well, this is success. You could be successful with wealth, you could be successful with family, you could success with community and all the different types. So what do you think of it, John?
As I say, I tell you, first of all, I want to welcome the villagers to our Thursday evening show. But before I get started, man, where the hell you get that hat from, man?
Yo, listen. Listen.
Hold on.
I purposely wore my hat because I knew you were going to say something.
Where the hell did he get that hat from, man? You
Actually,
know,
where did I get this?
we
hat from?
need
Well,
we
hold
need
on,
to
hold on.
take
Let me
some
think, let me think, let me think.
donations.
Oh,
We
I
got to
got
get
it.
him a hat.
I could tell exactly. Yes, I do need a donation. Because my son actually did something to my hat. He sat on my hat. But
That-
then,
that-
you
that-
should see.
that-
But
that
Andre, you
hat
saw all
is-
3 of us in Jamaica with our hats on, right?
That hat
All
is
right.
not the
King
epitome
and
of
Duke.
success, man.
Yeah,
That hat gotta go.
Hey, don't talk about that. Hey, don't look at the clothing that I'm wearing to decide if I'm successful. Look at you. Look at you all dappered out. Your Adidas, your polo, and your what's this? What the hat said? Oh, your Knicks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
buddy.
what's going on with them anyway?
But, hey,
They're not having
they
a good
lost
start.
last night, but hey,
They lost 2 nights in a row.
no,
No
they
way.
lost. No, they did not.
Oh, they beat Chicago?
They did. They beat Chicago. No, the Nets played Chicago.
No. Monday night they had a game.
They won Monday night,
They won Monday night. All right,
and they
good for
lost
them.
last night. Come on.
And the
he
Giants
ain't,
won too.
he ain't no Knick fan, y'all. But villagers, welcome. First of all, I want to today's Veterans Day. I want to pay honor and respect to those veterans, and especially those veterans who gave their lives for us to enjoy the freedom that we are enjoying, our ability to be on the radio, to do a lot of other things. It's just a blessing. And they gave their ultimate sacrifice, their lives to give us this freedom. But what's mind-boggling to me all the time is the polarization that exists in our country. We always talk about the veterans and, conservatives, Democrats, how supportive of we are with the veterans. However, what is always lacking is the lack of support that we give our veterans departments in the federal government and in the states. We have so many veterans who are homeless. How you doing, Marietta? And I didn't forget, Marietta, to reach out to Pastor to follow up on that thing for
You hear what Marietta said?
Leave Rudy hat. Marietta, come on. You don't know. You got to see this hat. You got to see this hat.
Thank you, Marietta. And hi everyone. I didn't. Hi everyone who has joined us on Facebook. And thank you, Marilyn. Yes, we believe. We do believe in greetings.
You don't believe in that hat.
John, you're talking about like riding on the backs of our veterans.
Correct.
And a lot of times people fail to recognize that the freedoms and the liberties that we have now is because we're riding on the back of somebody. When you talk about you go back to slavery, talk about unionism and the work of union. I mean, I was proud to be part of 2 great unions in my life, and then being affiliated with a third, right? One being the UFT, which is to me does a tremendous work for teachers and our students in New York City, and moving on from there to CSA, and then being part of 1199. Now, it's what they did for me, and sometimes now people are taking for granted the work, the veteran. My brother who served in Afghanistan, and he's serving Iraqi freedom, those things, and risking their lives. Thank you, Marietta, for getting my back.
Oh, come on, Mary. Hey, Mary. Hey, we didn't get that appointment yet, so just cool down.
Right.
You got to get that appointment first before you can start jumping on the Rudy bandwagon now.
But people have to understand that, like, what are you building on? You can't just, and then one of the other things to us, I that's one of my greatest regrets. I have 2 when it comes to work, right? One of my regrets is that my mama, my mama is like, why are you going to the military? Why are you going to the police force? And so she kind of swayed me not to do that. And so that's a regret of mine, that I didn't go to that. And I also felt like I should have done more with law enforcement, which I didn't do. And I had that opportunity and I chickened out.
Well, you know what? You still have an opportunity to do more with law enforcement. But,
so now John made me subconscious about my hat, right?
Yeah, I told you,
Punk.
put that hat away.
Nah, I'm leaving my hat.
But I think at the end of the day, we need to do more for our veterans and provide them the opportunities that they need, they want in their families. So I think that's where it comes to. We talk a good game when it comes to veterans, but we now need to prove them. We need to have some action. We need to put the money behind them that they need. So once again, I want to say happy Veterans Day, and also just thank you for those who have been a part of the military and has given us the freedom to enjoy what we're enjoying today. Because villagers, the one thing I've learned on a personal note, freedom is priceless.
You don't know what you're missing until you don't have it.
Amen.
And a lot of people, a lot of people fail to realize what's going on. Andre, do me a favor. Can you look up? There's a shooting on the Bell Parkway. See what's going on with that. That just happened.
Well, there's a shooting tonight.
Yeah, there's a shooting. Police shot somebody in the Bell Parkway. All right, so let's pull that up for us. He died.
That's following police involved shooting. He was a 65-year-old man.
65-year-old on the Bell Parkway.
Pull that up on our screen so we get a little bit on it. Yeah, there was a shooting. Literally on my way into the studio, I got the notification that somebody got shot on the Bell Parkway. And there was also a shooting at Glenwood and Avenue H, right down the street from the studio.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
just now.
Getting back to our mayor-elect, Mayor-elect Adams, brothers and sisters, villagers, we got to get these guns off the street.
Not just
it guns. Is just we got to get those who want to engage in criminal activities off the street. Enough is enough. Every week it's something. Some person getting, you got a 14-year-old shooting a 16-year-old on the bus. The safety is paramount.
And that's why
if we cannot have the safety that is necessary, it will paralyze our economy, just like COVID did. The lack of safety in our communities will paralyze not only our communities, but the economic impact that it can have on our communities. And we keep saying it over and over. This is a continuous conversation. But when are we going to actually learn that a bullet does not have a name on it, but the bullet's trajectory impacts so many people, not only people, but generations. I want to say welcome. Hey, Doc. It's always good to see you in the house. You're always late, but I understand. You know what I'm saying?
Kumbaya.
But I understand, Doc.
What?
It takes a lot of work to
look that good, right?
to not look that good, but to have that glow, that effervescent glow, and that's that spiritual glow. You can tell it. You can tell the Holy Ghost is in her, and it takes time for that to happen.
So she just sit there and just radiate, right?
No, just radiate.
You know what?
Welcome, Doc.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
I'm not even gonna ask you how you're doing because you're just gonna.
Yeah, don't ask me. I'm
not.
But I'm gonna ask you. How you doing, Doc? I'm gonna ask you. How you doing,
She's
Doc?
gonna say great.
God is good. God is
told
good.
You.
God is good all the time.
We know. Yeah, we covered that. We covered that.
Yes.
So, Doc, we were just talking about.
But before you
why are you interrupting me?
No, because I want to. I want you to.
This is what we go through.
No,
all the time.
because we go through this all the time. Because
John, you're on a roll tonight. I know, Mary.
Yeah,
but you brought up a good point, and I want you to. All I want you to do to expand a little bit further, because people don't understand what the economic impact on the social impact, the educational impact that violence does. And you touched on it, but I wanted you, because people don't really, sometimes people, they really need to understand all of that impact. So that's what I was, that's what I was saying.
You know what, the people, look at our communities, look at our schools, look at our employment rate, look at our educational rate for our children. Look, just go outside, look in your communities and see how that sort of violence in our community has paralyzed our communities. Look at us. Look, go outside and look in the street. Look what's going on in your community. And
I want to add on to what you're saying. You're right.
Now you see, Doc, you're becoming like Rudy now. Yeah, I can't even finish my conversation. Go ahead, Doc.
That's why we're friends, right, Doc?
He's rubbing off me. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sampson. I'm so sorry, John. Just want to add on to what you're saying. Look at our community or whatever, but you have to think of the impact that COVID also have, and then violence. That's like a double whammy, because people who actually lost families due to COVID and then lose a family member to violence, that's, that type of trauma you cannot help. And then encountering children that's exposed to that. That's another layer too.
And when you add in there the short period of time that these things are happening,
Correct. Go ahead.
right? So you have, you could lose a loved one today based upon violence,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
and people, ladies and gentlemen, villagers, when somebody gets killed,
Mm.
it's the family that is killed feel it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also the family that does the killing also feels it,
Yep.
because they also get repercussions from the community, especially if I know that you killed my kid,
True.
you killed my brother, you killed my sister, you killed my aunt, you killed my mother. Now you have to watch your back.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Correct.
Now your family does, because some people feel, hey, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If I can't catch you, I'm gonna catch your brother. Now everybody in your family is not safe. So violence, so just that's just something that's immediately, that I thought about when I started. I mean, I personally have not gone to funerals, but I've heard where at funerals they started shooting up at the funerals because they didn't feel satisfied with the person that died, or they felt like some kind of retribution that needed to happen because of that thing, right? So you had all of these different issues, and it's killing us. There's too many things, and then our young kids who go through this, there's so many things they go through too, as well as now you have issues of sexual abuse, now you have violence, now you have another thing to worry about. You can't even go outside your house, you can't stay in your house because you're getting abused, and you can't go outside because you're afraid for your life. What do you do?
What you do is this. Bottom line is you need to refrain from that sort of activity. But we talk about refrain. What are we doing for them? What opportunities
Who's
are we,
them? The person's committing the crime?
our kids who are
Okay.
involved in this, who
You
are
know
involved
what?
in the gangs at a very young age. What
Mhm.
do we do to move them away from that? We talk about one thing. We talk about we talk about if we're going to tell you to put down your guns, we
Mhm.
need to tell you to not only put down your guns, but we need you to put a career, a skill in your hands. So you are given that opportunity. You need to see the other side. A lot of our times, our kids don't see the other side. They
That's
live
true.
within the parameter of their community. They need to get outside of their area to see how other people live and the fringe benefits that they have by living it. Sometimes some of these hardcore individuals who want to engage in some of this criminal activity, I always say, let's recruit them. Let's send them over to Afghanistan. Let's send them over to those countries that
I
are
agree.
involved in war, and they themselves will see what criminality is all about. They will learn to appreciate the freedoms that they have. They need to, they don't understand the fight that people have. That we talk about these immigrants who take these 300-400-mile treks to come to the United States for just an opportunity of freedom, and we just give it away all the time. Some guys that I work with, they talk about, one of the gentlemen that I work with, he talks about when he was 20 years old, the judge sentenced him to 50 years. He was 21 years old looking at 50 years,
Mm.
and he said, while he was inside, he said, damn, I'm going to spend the rest of my life confined. I may not even live, but he was lucky to give back 25 of those years. And after 25 years, he's out. He's out. He's working in a supervisory capacity, going to school to get his degree. And one thing he's always told me, he said, I never realized how important, freedom is till it was
Mm.
taken from me. But I appreciate it now because 25 years was given back to me because I could still be sitting inside doing another 25 years.
One of my issues with that statement, which is great, I'm tired of when we talk to young people, and I need to figure out, and maybe we could find out somebody who can have us have that conversation. I keep telling young people, there's certain things that you need to live on your own and experience on your own. while others you can live vicariously through others.
Right.
You don't need to know, right? You don't need to know that going to jail is not worth it. Just like you don't need to know that don't play with fire because you get burned. Don't get hit by a bus because it hurts.
Right.
And yet still, some of these things, the understanding level. So maybe, I try psychologists or something to understand, because again, I was born big, so I don't understand that child psychology type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's important because I think, and then like I have these issues that roll through my head. We will have a program where we have on somebody who's talking about books, talking about STEMs, talking about economic growth. And then people tune out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They tune out, they log off, they go someplace else. Oh, that's a boring conversation. But then if you talk about the stab Susan stabbed Bill, all of a sudden, the interest peaks.
Well, Roger, we sex and violence sells. We know that.
Yeah,
That's
but
we know that.
then how do we say, okay, that's fine, because we all have the what do you call it? The old, what do you call people from the olden days? Archaic. I'm missing the word. Caveman mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Boo, 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 boo. But we also have the mentality of I want the best for myself and my family.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we gonna? How do we say? Let's sit down. Let's combine them. Yeah, you could listen to this and blah 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 blah, but at the same time, you also need to listen to this and show the same level of interest.
Well, I think some people don't know what is the best thing, or never experienced it, never had the opportunity to get outside their neighborhoods, so they can understand how other people live. What's if you go, it's very simple. If you go, you look at our communities. You go Brownsville, East New York. And then if you go to Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, what's the difference? The homes are the same. The homes are the same. But, the
medium income is not.
The medium
income, education.
I would agree with that. But it's the appreciation that you have in your community to upkeep it to a certain level. So people
and
can
not
show
leaving
respect.
It to others.
My parents were not, they were robbed of a college education, but they worked hard and they took care of their property, and they made sure that their home or their land or their property, they appreciated it, and they made sure it was presentable. They made sure it was upkeep. That's what's interesting is if you see our kids in the way they well dressed, but when you go to their homes, it's in such chaos. You go to the environment they live in, it's such chaos. Why can't our appearance be reflective of where we live and how we treat not only our communities, but those in our communities?
I have a theory on that.
Okay. What's your theory?
I think when I was teaching, I said poor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Know that you're poor. And when I said that, parents came back. Oh, you call my kid poor.
Mm.
And the purpose there is, when I said it, like the lunch forms, when you're filling them out,
Right. Mm-hmm.
when you're filling out this college application, all of a sudden you want to see more than you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wonder why you don't get.
Mm-hmm.
Because my theory is, I want to be rich so bad that I fail to realize the situation that I'm actually in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And as such, I rather live the lie than know the truth. Right? I rather live the lie than know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I know the truth, right? So that's why I'm wearing. See, I would tell everybody right now, right? I buy clothes. I could tell you right now, everything I have on, I don't even think it costs $50. Maybe the shoes cost $50. Right?
What about, you said clothes?
Yeah, my clothes.
What
But-
about your clothes? You like clothes?
Yeah, clothes.
Really?
Yeah. I buy clothes on sale.
Mm.
That's what I do. I'm not going to, I'm not trying to,
No
I don't,
comment.
I do. Because at the end of the day, I'm not there to prove that I have economic wealth or lack thereof. I understand that that's why success is not just spoken, it is done. So I want to make the investment in my children. Doc, we talk all the time. Generational wealth, your legacy. What are you leaving behind? If I'm spending everything now, what am I leaving for my children for them to grow on? You know what I'm leaving them? I'm leaving them the same poverty that I am in. That's what I'm leaving them. That's the legacy I'm leaving them.
See, Simone mentioned, how can one appreciate what they weren't taught to do?
I disagree with that, Simone. I don't think they weren't taught. I think they failed to understand, because every child went to school at some level.
No, Roger. They, you know, they aren't taught. They, if you have a child raising a child, the child was never taught. So how is that child going to teach their child about?
I think it goes back to community, right, John?
Yeah.
Simone, John, are you really asking that they're serious? Because when the answer is very obvious, explain, Simone. You could explain. We're listening. Come on, they aren't taught. They weren't taught. No, here's what I'm not.
No, the whole Simone. It's not the point where they weren't taught, but of course, because if you have children raising children, that child who's raising their child was never taught, never given the opportunity, don't understand. You know, so what are they going to pass on? They're going to pass on the mistakes, or they're going to pass on the mistakes that they made. However, just because you were born in poverty does not mean you have to stay in poverty.
That is true.
That you know what?
That is true.
We have to stop using that as an excuse. If we can create our own opportunity,
and that's the point I'm getting at. It's what do you choose to listen to? You get what I'm saying? Sometimes you choose to listen to the bugaboo, the ridiculousness, because that's what you want to follow, because the dramatization, that lack of self-actualization. Because if you don't do self-assessment, you don't set goals for yourself.
Hold on, what's that? Lack of self-actualization.
Knowing who you are.
Oh, so just be simple.
Right? Right. Caller, you live.
Hi, it's Simone. Good evening.
Good evening,
I
Simone.
think you guys are misunderstanding what I'm saying. My statement that you read last, that I was talking to John, was when he was saying that if you go to Bensonhurst or you come to Brownsville, the houses are all the same. So what's the problem? Then I was answering that question. But I agree with John in what he's saying, that they weren't taught, that you have children teaching children. But my questions are not lining up with what you guys are talking about. My answers are coming after you already passed the fact.
Thank you very much, Simone.
It's Andre's fault. He didn't pull up your comment.
Thank
on
you,
time.
Simone,
we're gonna blame Andre.
Clarification.
But
Simone, I will not blame.
I am gonna blame Andre.
Don't blame Andre. I'm not gonna blame.
All right, I'm gonna blame.
I blame Andre because just now Andre answered the phone and I have to repeat myself like 3 times. I don't know what he's on right now.
Kumbaya, man.
I don't know what Andre's on tonight. He's not on point tonight.
Simone.
So hold on. Since we got Simone on the phone, Simone. So what's your thoughts about this? Let's hear it.
I was listening to everything that you guys are saying, and you know, like you said, it takes a village. But when you have children raising children, and when you have, or let me say, parents raising children, then, and they have the attitude of, you can't talk to my child this way, don't get involved with my child this way. If you see a child looking a certain way, you're supposed to tell and try to talk to them, the parents are going to curse you out. This is what we get. This is the Brownsville that we get. This is the Bed-Stuy that we get. But when you go to different areas, the component is so different. The parents are so different. They turn out to PTA. They participate. They do so many different things.
So you know what?
Are different.
Simone, this is Linda just commented, and I just want to read you what Linda said. Linda says people are focused on external factors rather than internal.
Exactly.
So their homes is a reflection of what's going on inside. Your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on that?
Sometimes. Because I can tell you, for example, I know children who will act the most outrageous way on the outside. And when they're in the home, you would not believe it's the same kid because they're not taught like that in the home, but they're so happy to be out of the house, out of the discipline, out of whatever, that they don't know how to behave when they're out on the street. I used to look at a kid and say, yeah, you can't tell what's going on in the house. That's like how they behave. But I've now eaten those words because it's not true all the time.
You know what? And Doc, what do you think about what Simone's saying, Doc?
I agree with it. I'm listening to what she says in regards to the reflection, in regards to the community, different upbringing, really contributes to the effect of what we have. You know, like you said, if you have a 12-year-old raising a baby, you're not going to have the same quality if you have someone who's 30 years old. So you have different mentality, different areas bring different results, unfortunately.
You know,
It's
you know, one of the things, and Simone, I know you're in education as well. And one thing I realize is in our community, you know, they say that 20% of your income is supposed to go towards the education of your child.
Mhm.
That's the number. It's actually 20%. So if you make, if you,
What's that music?
Technical difficulties at this point at the village.
I'm sorry. That time it wasn't Andre. I'm not going to blame Andre this time. That time was me. But
If you make, you were saying if you make,
if you make 40,000, yeah, that means $8,000 have to be put towards your child's
and
education.
that's impossible because rent right
But
now.
but I'm not saying whether it's possible or not, right? I guess that's not really the conversation around whether or not it's possible or not possible. But what I'm saying is, right, if 20% is to be put down for education, maybe where you live, you know, maybe you can't. Let me go back. Children don't ask to be here. We have children. We bring them into this world. So therefore, if we bring them to this world, we're responsible for them. They're not responsible for themselves. So if there's certain protocols that are in place, then we as parents have to make certain sacrifices for the children that we brought into this world.
Correct.
Right. And so whether it's 20%, okay, maybe that might be too much. So then you might have to figure out how do you do the stopgap? How do you fill in this gap? Like that means that, you know what? Okay, maybe I need to work.
But Rudy, I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I have an issue with when it comes to education, and I've often said it to my son, I said to my daughter, the things that you are saying, they need to be taught this from the get-go in school. This is not being taught in schools.
Which is what John is saying.
It doesn't have to be when you graduate and out of college and in debt with student loan that you're learning some of the things that you're learning. That should not be. Right now, the kids are being taught has no relevance at all, neither to now or in the future.
Preach, Simone. Hit it.
Yeah. You know.
Yes and no. I agree with you. Yes and no. I would say a good educator, and depending on what school you go to, will expose you to real life situation. Because I do know a couple of schools that teach about business and things like that, but it's not every school.
Like
Remember,
you said, a couple of schools, you could count that
Right.
on one
Yeah,
hand.
I
And
think
they say no child left behind, it should be equal across the board.
that is true. But when you leave options and you're given the opportunity to choose your own curriculum or develop your own thing, you're not going to have the same thing all across. It depends on the vision of the principal. That's where there's a disconnect, and what career and community and college and career readiness means to one individual doesn't mean the same to another individual. Showing right.
So
wait.
Simone and Doc, this is
a great conversation.
Not only a great conversation. This is the conversation that needs to be had. We have one of our guests that we have to come on, but Simone, please, we're going to continue this evening, and we want you to call back in because this is a hot.
I have to go at 9 o'clock for 8 o'clock for Bible study.
Bible studies.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Hey,
Praise the Lord.
Simone stays with us from 7 to 8. and she goes to Bible study from
Yes.
8 to 9.
From
And
8
then
to
she goes,
9.
then she
Yes.
goes back in
Come
YouTube
back at
and watches,
9 to 9:15.
and then she watches YouTube to see the rest of the show that she
Yep.
missed.
Yep. I sure do.
That's what I'm talking about.
Simone,
Thank
Well,
you.
thank
All
you.
right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great
All right,
one.
you
Simone,
too.
thank you very much.
You know, it's very interesting that you know, we're going to bring on Dr. Walker right now. She's, you know, for her to come on, and she has another topic that has to deal with children and what is happening with our young people around the world. But one of the things that I wanted to say is that Simone brought up some things on education. It's what are the other things that you're offering to your school? Because you're the principal. What are the other things, like, what are you, okay, are you just stuck on reading, writing, and arithmetic or whatever they call it? But are you interested in club and activities? But now we want to pivot to our Dr. Ingrid Walker-Descartes, and so to talk about another component that are affecting young people in school, that
Welcome,
affect
Dr. Walker. Welcome.
their learning. So welcome, Dr. Ingrid Walker-Descartes. Thank you. Just say hello.
Thank you.
Our audience.
So hello, as Roderick noted, Dr. Ingrid Walker-Descartes. I am a child abuse pediatrician and a longtime friend of Roderick. Actually knew Roderick since the 5th grade. So
You know what? My
you don't have to apologize for
my
him. It's okay.
condolences. My condolences, please.
Ingrid, we're gonna fight.
My God.
So, I'm very happy.
Wait. You know what? There's two reasons why we're gonna fight.
We're
One,
always fighting, Roderick.
I know, ever since, right?
Nothing new.
But you just showed, because you look so young, I look so old. So people to know that we've known each other, we've been. You know what? I'm not liking you right now.
Well, you need to change your foundation.
Oh, yay! By the way, she's been like this all her life. Yes. So welcome.
Thank you, Roderick. So just talking a little bit about what I do, and really wanted to come on this show.
I want you to go back a little bit though, Ingrid.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from, your background, you know, because a lot of people, you know, because one of the things that John spoke about, I don't know if you heard that conversation, that people, they don't step outside and don't understand that within their own communities that they can evolve. So I want to make sure that people understand exactly where we're coming from, and we're not just talking it, we're actually living it.
Okay. So my name Ingrid. My name's Ingrid Walker-Descartes. I'm actually born from Jamaica. I came to this country when I was about 10 years old. Went into the public school system. Actually, Roderick and I were in classes together, and got an opportunity for an academic scholarship through the A Better Chance program. Went away and basically just with the foundations of A Better Chance, which one of the components of what they do in the mission is to actually educate students of color from public school settings and set them up with foundations so that they can go on to levels of leadership in society. So that was kind of my launch. Come from a very proud West Indian Jamaican home. So a lot of what was said before about not having where you start from dictate where you end really resonates with me. I'm really happy about tonight's opportunity to come back and to some extent reflect on our culture and how we raise our kids, and talk a little bit about how it relates to my work in child abuse pediatrics. So from there, I can talk a little bit about what child abuse pediatrics is and how I became interested in it. I went to medical school, and when you're in medical school, a huge part of it is, yes, being in the classroom, learning about the physiology, pathophysiology, but going back out to the communities and the Black communities around where the school is, and participating to address what I consider, now in a position of educational leadership, aspirational disparities in our children, where they need to see young people doing positive things, and to some extent aspire, hopefully, to do that in the future. So by going back and volunteering in the community, I was able to do this. But I came across just kind of the consistent theme of trauma and even more so working in a clinic where I saw children in foster care, coming across the theme of trauma, and seeing a system that to some extent over polices Black families, but also in those cases where it's indicated, a lot of Black and brown kids that are traumatized by the various forms of child abuse, which means neglect, physical abuse, emotional neglect, as well as sexual abuse. And so with the field of child abuse pediatrics, you get your training in pediatrics where you're a general pediatrician, but then you go back and do additional training to actually see how you can manage, advocate for these children, and hopefully prevent these types of abuses from happening. So that's a little bit about my background and what it is and why it matters. So I'll stop there and see if there's anything that anyone wants to interject before I kind of move on.
When you talk about the different abuses, right? It's kind of scary, especially when they come from the educational perspective. So I want to ask one question before we even go into your specialty of what we want to talk, which is primarily sexual abuse. What are some factors that people have to look for when they look for abuse? What are some factors what are some things that for parents out there who are maybe hiding, maybe not seeing it, maybe the vision is blurred or whatever.
The very root of child abuse comes from lack of resources, and lack of resources can do two things. It either has parents make poor decisions around safeguarding their children, or it doesn't afford the resources to keep your children, to ensure that your children are safe. So it really stems from lack of resources, some of the forms, more specifically neglect. Okay. And as a person doing this type of work and as a specialist, we are trained, and there are times that I have to advocate within the system to say, you know what, this family, these children look like they're neglected. However, though the jackets aren't warm enough for winter, the clothes aren't warm enough, they are clean. So what that's telling you is that there's a lack of resources. The family's doing the best they can, but they need additional supports to help them do that, versus where there's more than enough resources, and the parents actually decide that they're not going to avail this to the children. So that being said, you're going to see all these types of abuses in resource-rich environments and resource-poor environments. And you really have to get to the bottom of why that is. And a lot of times what there is are mental health conditions, especially in the parents, drug use or abuse. Sometimes people are self-medicating because of mental health issues. So really it stems from, again, if there are mental health issues on board, what are resources, and how caregivers are making decisions around the use of those resources to safeguard their children.
You know what, Doc, you just hit on something very important. The whole component of mental health and mental illness. And some of those who suffer from it try to cloak it or cover it up by engaging in criminal activity and avoiding situations where it's obvious that they need assistance. Take, for example, in school. Why go to school when I may be embarrassed because of my inability or the issues that I have, but I'm not ready to confront them. Sometimes we have to learn to be able to confront the demons that we have. And that's the only way we want to be able to resolve that.
Well, we're also in a community, and our culture does not make it easy for people to confront those demons. We don't make it easy for people to say, I hear voices, or the voices are telling me this, or the voices are telling me that. We don't make it easy for people to say, I want to see a psychiatrist, or I feel I need medication for this. We don't make it easy. And so because we don't make it easy, we have a lot of people that are not only engaging in illegal behavior or activities, but also our children who are now experimenting with drugs that we don't even understand how it impacts our minds to try to feel normal. So that's a whole other conversation, but also still related to what I do, which is child abuse pediatrics. Because what we find is that as I work with families and work with children who present with mental health issues, once you peel it all away, a majority of them have experienced one of these types of traumas that have not been addressed when it happened.
You are very passionate about one specific child abuse that's there, right? Did we lose her?
Yeah, she gonna come back in.
Okay, so give her, it's child abuse is a very serious thing.
Very serious.
And sometimes, I hate it, but sometimes parents are in denial and we're in denial. And when we get her back, okay, there she is.
Yeah.
So you're very passionate about child abuse, child sexual abuse.
I'm passionate about all the forms of abuse. I will correct.
I agree.
I want to talk about the one we are most uncomfortable talking about because we need to talk about it.
So how do conversations that are considered taboo contribute to the well, first of all, what is child sexual abuse? Let's define that for our audience.
Well, I'll keep it very simple. It's the inappropriate involvement of an adult with a child around any kind of sexual behavior, no matter slight.
That's too that's too doctory. Try to.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Straight to the point. Adult and a child should not be engaging in any type of sexual activities. Period.
But you know why? You know why? But you know why I said that's too adulty? They need to understand that also involve language, not just physical. Sometimes people assume it's physical.
And I said no matter how slight, because one of the things is that even if you're engaging in a conversation around sex that's developmentally inappropriate, that is considered child sexual abuse. So developmentally inappropriate conversation still considered child sexual abuse. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this topic is one of the things that as a society we condemn, but when it happens, we look the other way.
And the conversation. Oh, he didn't mean anything by that. No. I don't care if you didn't mean anything like that. You're not having those conversations with my kid.
Well, that's for the parents who are very savvy and engage with their children about what other adults are talking to them about. And the reason, when people say to me, how can I prevent this from ever happening to my child? I say, talk to your child. Because I will tell you, a part of my work is definitely knowing about trauma, but you also have to delve into what I call the dark literature, which is reading what perpetrators and pedophiles do. They study how to disarm our children. They study how to disarm us. And there are tactics and techniques that are used to make sure that they have access to our children. So the only way to prevent it is to have open conversations about sex, sexuality, and all those things that I believe that as a culture, we call big people conversation. Because pedophiles and perpetrators will say, show me a child that hasn't spoken to their parents about sex, and I will show you my next victim.
Doctor, we're both from the background, and thank you. I see the comments coming from Simone. Simone just said something before. Monet Harris. Yeah, Monet Harris would.
Big Mo.
It happens in a lot of families a lot, and facts. One of the things that, and I tell parents all the time, if it didn't work for you, it's not going to work for your children. If it didn't work, so when you say to your child, "Don't have sex," what does that really mean to that child?
Well, I'm going back even before we have that conversation about don't have sex, and I want to go to Monet's comment where she says it happens in families a lot, because when we talk to our children and we tell them don't have sex, we envision this stranger. We envision somebody coming out of somewhere dark and snatch them up. Pedophiles and perpetrators don't look like that. They look like Uncle such and such. It looks like that person you're always telling your child to go hug up and kiss them. And when the child says no, you still force them to go and hug up and kiss that adult. So that child gets a sense that, you know what, when it comes to this person, my parents are going to always be on their side. So it's not getting to the point where you're saying don't have sex. You haven't even broached that conversation with your child before this person starts saying that. And we have to give our children that security that I don't care who it is. It could be such and such, grandpa such and such, cousin such and such. I don't want them talking to you about this. You have any questions about it, come to me. Because our children envision these strangers that are going to do these things. And when people with access do that to them, they don't even know or have the context to process this, to know that, oh my God, mommy talked about this, or daddy talked about this.
So Simone comment is what I was alluding to, right? Some parents are so uncomfortable talking about sex with their children, which is what I was alluding to, where you stifle the conversation before the conversation can start.
But the conversation needs to start before our children even have words, Roderick. And what we don't acknowledge is kids start knowing their sexual parts and organs by 9 months. By 9 months, a little boy is grabbing on his penis and you can't get it out of his hand because it feels good. There are sexual behaviors in children that are normal, that we don't give an opportunity to talk about that and tell our kids, this is a part of your body. This is normal. If you touch it, it's going to feel that way. That's normal. That's for you to touch, nobody else to touch. That's for you. That's why it's called your private part, so on and so forth. So there's a part of it where the conversation around that starts before our children even have words, and we have to start preparing to talk to them at the pace that they're going, because they go very fast. We don't give children the credit for all the things they take in and they understand. And we talk to them about it when we're ready. And our kids are months and years ahead of us, especially when it comes to that.
That's true. That is true.
Simone writes that parents and caretakers forces children to hug. If this child said no, and I guess she's commenting, she's agreeing with what you're saying when you say,
That's so true.
Because we send a lot of mixed signals to our children, right? And a part of it is owning your body. And one of the things I'll say is the best way, and one way to prevent sexual abuse of children, is to arm them with the correct words. And that is, I know when kids are growing up, penis, we call it teely, a vagina, we call it this or that. Teach your children the proper names for their private parts. This is a penis, even if they call it a peanut, still they can say it right, or a vagina. Teach them the proper name, because I will tell you, when your child comes and tells you that someone has been touching their cookie, no one knows what that is. And when they have to speak to the appropriate authorities about it, that goes nowhere, because they have lawyers who are savvy to say, yes, Uncle such and such gave her a cookie. What is she talking about? So you want to arm your children. So when your child says, that person touched my vagina, you know what they're talking about. And I can tell you, a child may not be able to ward off an adult completely, but if a child says, why are you touching my vagina? Why are you touching my penis? I bet you that's the last time that adult will do that.
I want to move. I want to move to the opening conversation. Simone, I don't remember if it was Simone or whoever brought the comment up about being uncomfortable, parents being uncomfortable. Let's start that open dialogue. I am uncomfortable. I'm from the traditional West Indian background. My mother's a pastor. My father's a pastor.
So what the hell happened to you? What the hell happened to you?
Right. And no, I give credit to my mom. My mom.
Enough respect for Miss Daly. Enough respect.
My mom had conversations, with me, but she still had the don't do. How do you start? How do you start the dialogue? Right? How do you start the dialogue? And also, how do you start a dialogue if you're uncomfortable? Because you are uncomfortable, but you cannot be uncomfortable because you're protecting your child. But just think about how would you start the conversation?
If you start that conversation.
Let's do a what do you call it? What do you call it in school? Role play.
Okay.
Right. How do you start it? I'm the kid.
Okay. So you're my 1-year-old that keeps.
Well, a 1-year-old can't talk. Let's talk to somebody who can actually give feedback.
No, a
let's say
1-year-old can say about 50 words, and
No,
one
no,
of
no,
them
no,
should
no.
be.
I'm talking about not identifying, but at the 4 or 5-year-old, the age where if somebody is doing something to you, what are you? Some things.
You're missing the ball.
Go ahead.
Somebody should
What
be
am I saying?
doing something to you. That conversation should be had, and that's why I'm pushing for an earlier age group.
Okay, go
We're
ahead.
pushing for earlier age group. So you have your 2-year-old, and 2-year-olds are very curious. They really want to, how would I say, show you what they know. You can understand 50% of what they say, but not so much. But they're touching body parts, they're walking into the bathroom inappropriately. You start setting boundaries, and your child might say, well, like, why? And you start explaining to them, okay, you need to stay out of the bathroom because I am not dressed.
Right.
And I am not dressed because my private parts are exposed, and these parts are private. And what that means is that, yes, I can see your private part because I'm your mommy or I'm your daddy, but anybody else who wants to see your private part has to ask us. Okay, but we have adult private parts. You have a little boy or little girl's private parts. So let's start out by knocking before you come in the bathroom, so you understand that these parts are private. I will answer any question you have about them, but these parts are private. So I know you used to come in the bathroom and it was okay because you were learning to use the potty, but now you're a big boy or a big girl. So we have to set boundaries. Okay. And so you start with those kind of interactions, because one of the things that people who groom children do is getting the child used to nudity, their nudity. So sometimes what it starts out with is, let's play a game and see who can pee farther. And we know that with little boys and little girls, the child sexual abuse rates are the same. Boys just don't tell. Okay. And a part of that is because as a society, we don't allow boys to tell. So it starts with that game where you have your penis out.
We don't believe that people are touching boys.
Well,
that
yeah.
happens too.
Yeah. So I play a game. I take out my penis. You take out your penis, and let's play a game. See who can pee further. Now we're both comfortable with our penises out. Then I will say, let me touch yours. The child, of course, their body is going to respond to that. So now they're kind of confused. And then they feel, okay, this is a great game. Let me make you feel good too. So these are the type of things where we have to start setting boundaries. So when that adult says, oh, take yours out, they're like, no, that's my private part. And I don't want to see yours. That's your private part.
That's so true. Do you find that a lot of young boys are abused and later on their parents discover that there was some form of abuse, or do you find that more in little girls? What are the rates?
The rates, again, as I say, rival each other. Finding out is very difficult, and that's for several reasons, some physiologic that I don't go into. But that being said, there also, when we see boys having aggressive behaviors, a lot of times they're trying to, how would I say, make sense of what's going on. And sometimes we often explain away these behaviors as boys will be boys. They're just roughhousing. We don't kind of delve into it to say, what's going on?
Because there's something, Doctor, you're right. There's something deeper, something deeper there that they have covered up, or they have manifested in engaging in certain activities so they don't have to deal with it.
Correct. And not only that, to some extent, we protect the girls. And what we do is we kind of push the boys out there. So you will hear pedophiles say, I coach because I know that, the parents need somebody because they work a lot. So I'm going to be available. And, the parents work a lot. So they're going to want me to take this child home. So they look at these different things and these different opportunities. And I say to folks, when there's another adult that appears to love your child more than you do, boy or girl, you need to start asking some questions.
Imani writes that she agrees with these conversations. As a young mother, I'm constantly telling my 3-year-olds I'm assuming they're twins, what their body parts are, and they know what's appropriate, what given privacy is. I think it's not about just giving privacy, but giving a separation. right? A separation between learning the difference between adults and children, right? Knowing your place. Like one of the things that annoy me a lot, Dr. Walker.
You can just call me Ingrid, Roderick. It's okay.
Yeah, I know, right? After, I feel professional, right?
Just for today.
Yes, Ingrid. Ingrid. Yes,
I'm going to revoke it.
Right.
After the 5th grade.
Yeah. But one of the things is that what I hate most is when parents start having a conversation like, my child is my best friend. And they having open conversations with the child and not knowing the separation. So when the child goes outside and somebody else is having a conversation with them, they're like, oh, this is okay because my father speaks to me this way. Right. And there's no boundary. Right.
And I think, one of that, and I'm going to talk about just a reality of what we're living in. And my parents used to say this term, and it never meant much to me until now. And when you hear kids saying certain things, and, my parents would be like, oh, they're one room picnic, where everything the adults are doing, they see, and so on and so forth. And the reality of finances and resources, that a lot of families are in one room. A lot of families and a lot of kids are seeing things before they should. And so to some extent, our children are also very overstimulated sexually and otherwise, because of just what they're exposed to, just watching TV. Everything relates to sex. And so there's this part of it. That's why I'm like, when you're ready to talk to your child about sex, know that they're well ahead of you. They could probably tell you some things. So that's why I'm here speaking from a preventative standpoint, where kudos to that mother who's starting this conversation with her children being 3. And that's when they're just at 75% of their knowledge word acquisition and being expressive. They're expressing 75% of what they know. The rest of it, they know, but they can't express it yet. And the conversations have to start early.
But a lot of people, it's like a taboo. Start early, talking. I mean, it's so obvious from the television what goes on. There's no reason why we can't start early. There's no reason. It's the same thing as Mayor-elect Eric Adams talked about. He talked about we continuously have that, looking at the downstream mentality. We need to grab those individuals before they even come to the river or come to the stream. We need to provide them that support and understanding, or just an opportunity to have a conversation, so you can see, and not only see but also feel the fullness that can be exhibited based upon those who have gone through similar situations.
So it's really important in the upstream, when you're meeting, and we talk about this for social determinants of health, where you can see and meet the person where they are, but you also have to look upstream as to why that issue is flowing downstream. And that's why I'm here from that preventative standpoint. But I also see Simone say, is it wrong for a mother to let her son see her naked and explain what body parts are? I'm going to say yes, because there are books and illustrations that do a better job. Okay?
I run. I see that. Run.
Children are not only just visual. If they see it, they want to touch it. And so imagine if that exchange is happening between your son and you, that is inappropriate. There are a lot of books, that how would I say, that explains that in an age appropriate situation, so that the answers can be addressed appropriately. Because I could just imagine, you showing your child something and they go, ew, mommy, like, that's not that exchange. A book will say it. You can explain from there and go from there. And what would be worse is you don't want them to be teaching that in school, and your child says, well, when I saw my mom's, inappropriate, because kids, they have no filter. So
they sure don't have no filter.
So they don't have to keep any secrets for you,
I want to add on with last year, I would say, last year, online learning, virtual learning, a lot of children were exposed to so many different things. As teachers are teaching, here it is, a parent's walking around naked. And
Oh yeah,
you
yeah, I remember that.
no, this happened more common, but then you also see abuse happening, the beating of
Mm.
children. So you find that Lassie exposed more abuse than usual, or it was subtle, but people are just coming,
Well,
from frustration or whatever.
yeah. Well, let's say abuse is always there. And I
Right.
find that when something happens in the media, it's like, oh, let's focus on this. What
Mhm.
happened, and I actually published an article on it, which is when COVID and the school shutdown happened. I basically, and a lot of my colleagues in this field said, let's brace ourselves. The
Mhm.
source of reports about abuse, 70% come from teachers. So imagine the
I'm
fact
sorry,
that
say it again.
70% of those reports come from educators.
Oh, you scared me. I thought you said another number. I thought this maybe
No.
all the way negative.
So
Okay.
imagine now these kids aren't going to school where they have educators to advocate for them.
Mm, mm.
So what
D.
online schooling did was give us a window into those households, but
Mhm.
know that for the households that are really chaotic, those kids are just not attending school, period.
Mm.
Parents out there, I want to admonish you for you to listen to what Dr. Walker is saying,
You
what
don't
Ingrid
mean
is saying.
admonish. What do we? We're not
No,
Don't admonish them. They're trying their best. We're here
Right.
to educate.
Right. So no, I want to what I'm saying in mind. I know why I'm saying admonish, because sometimes we talk at the kids and not with the kids. So I'm admonishing you that you now start listening and saying, oh, you know what? Maybe the message I was given, maybe I had the right idea. Because that does happen. Parents, they're telling the kid the right thing, but it's not coming through the right way. That's what I'm saying. I'm telling them to start listening to some of these conversations. Because you know what? Some of those things you're saying, I'm educated, and I didn't even think about approaching it that way.
Well, as
You
I
know?
said, the mixed messages are also important because one of the things that we tend to do is as kids start exploring their own bodies, you slap them, stop touching
Don't
that.
touch that.
That's
Don't touch that.
nasty. That's
Mm.
nasty. And then they get to adolescence and then you get all holy with them and say, oh, save it for somebody you love. So this thing that was nasty my whole life is now for somebody that I love. Like, how does that make any sense? We have to teach them to own their bodies. And when they say, I don't feel like hugging that person, say, you know what, you're right, it's your body. You can make that decision. And maybe in private explore why they're uncomfortable with that. But we have to watch those mixed messages. There was another quote that I came across, which is, again, we raise our daughters to be women we tell our sons never to marry. You tell your daughter, I want to talk up, I want take no crap from man and this and this. And if your son brings in a spitfire into the house, you say, me not like her. She too bossy. She talk too much. She do this. So we are notorious. Notorious.
I have a question because we only have a couple of minutes, but I know that, by the way, audience, I want to shout out because I'm trying to convince Dr. Walker, Ingrid, that she needs to be back on the show a few more times. So I'm trying to convince her. But let's go back. No, hold on a second.
Yeah, there was a
go back to anyway. Put that up first. Let's just see that. Okay. Oh my God. Hi, Ingrid. Oh, Margaret. Oh, Margaret Ferguson.
All the time.
Yes.
Go back.
This one is a very good question. Go ahead, Joanne.
Good question, Simone. A mother twins. Go ahead.
I can see it. So they shower together because I've never thought about it, how it will impact them in the future. Well, the thing is, once your child starts noticing that difference in the body parts, it's time to separate. And sometimes when we're the same sex as our child, we actually tend to go a little bit longer. But once you start having those questions like, oh, mommy, why does yours have a mustache and mine doesn't? Okay, it's time to bathe them separately.
Oh
and,
my
start talking about changes.
A mustache.
Kids notice everything. If daddy's face has this stuff on it and she asks what it is, and you say it's a mustache, well, when hair is everywhere else, what is it? It's a mustache. So these are the things that, no, it's not going to change your child or whatever. But when you're getting more questions than needed, maybe it's time to just focus on them and answer questions about their body by itself, but not in comparison to yours.
You know, Ingrid, I want to get to a question because I know, and as you can see, this is live, so you know, a lot of conversations, and I hate to, you know, the fact that we're gonna have to, you know, stop you, right? But I do have a question that I need something out there for the parents. You and I had a conversation briefly prior to coming on air about communication. You talk about 3 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the 3 days. Nowadays, that's all it takes. Can you explain that? When you're doing that, talk about why you come up with that and what are parents supposed to look out for?
Yeah. So one of the things that really got me into this space, and as I say, you have to delve into the dark literature. I've done studies looking at grooming behaviors and how adults groom children, and talking to parents about recognizing these grooming behaviors. So once your child is saying they saw some adults' private parts, you need to approach that adult and say, I don't know what you're up to, but that's not going to work on my watch. Okay, because that is grooming your child.
You see
now,
the finger wag,
again, remember, don't set your kids up to think that these people are strangers out there. They're people who have access to them. They're people who have your trust. So you have to get your child's antennas up to talk to you about these things, that nothing is a secret. And no matter what the secret is, I will never stop loving you, because that's what these individuals do. When your child see you and them shaking hands and you and them smiling, the child starts thinking, they'll never believe me. But you have to put that in your child's head. I believe you above anybody else. That being said, when there's an individual that's grooming a child in person, it can take weeks and months, because they have to get your trust. They have to get the child's trust. Do you know that with spaces where adults and children are now interacting, it takes 3 days to groom children, not weeks and months, 3 days. And if the child is old enough, the child goes to that person. So even more important for you to talk to your kids and have open discussions. It's so sad for me, especially with all the sex trafficking happening, seeing these young girls that are just missing, gone. No one's looking for them. You know, this one is, and these are girls, again, being groomed, and it takes a matter of days, not months, not weeks, 3 days on average. And I've done studies where I've asked parents about at what point would they intervene to stop a molester or someone who's a pedophile. At what point do they think it's important to really step in? And a lot of parents that I interviewed said, I thought it was important to step in after they penetrated my child. However, a lot of parents said that. And a lot of parents also said, I would ask my child, why did you let that happen? So
they put the blame back on the kid. They put the blame on the kid.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
and
crazy.
that is automatic, because a lot of times when that happened, who gets to blame? The child.
And what happens with that child? What happens with that child as that child goes up and goes through life? What happens?
Correct. They're to blame, you know, and you're holding them accountable for stuff we've never spoken to them about.
And not that they have the ability to do something about. You know, they're victims. They're not perpetrators.
Correct. And sometimes they've been victims of the same abuse. And you have some parents that are like, it happened to me, I'm gonna turn out all right. So, you know, she would be all right. And it's not fair.
I'm trying to even be more careful now. I mean, I have all boys, and I have a conversation with them all the time. And there's just the internet and Facebook. When you say 3 days, and you know, I just got a call this week about this Discord thing that's on Roblox, a communication piece, where there's a mixture of adults and children. And when I hear the conversation that they're having, because when the school call, I am appalled. And I'm like, that's got to go. I know my friend, she did the same thing for her daughter. Like, she's off it, and my son is off it immediately. You know, Tanya, go back to Tanya. Tanya says that some parents have never been taught themselves about speaking about their body parts. So how can they have their discussion with the child? And the foundation is just not there.
Start in your pediatrician's office. Your pediatrician should be talking to you about if you're having these discussions and why. And it starts with as simple as when that pediatrician, as a pediatrician, if I'm going to do it and check a child, I will tell them I'm going to check you from head to toe. But before I check your private parts, I'm going to ask mommy's permission. What that means is that anybody that checks your private parts needs mommy's permission. And if they do, and you don't think they had mommy's permission, ask mommy to clarify. And then I'll say to the child, did mommy ever talk to you about why this is your private parts? And the child, the mother sometimes say, yes, I did. And the child will be like, no, I didn't. So I stand between the mother and the child because I want to block them because I don't want the child responding to mom's cues. I want to talk to this child. And if the child says no, I'm going to say, okay, mommy, let's go through this talk. Because also in this kind of world of online dating and people meeting people and they have young kids, know that they're men that are looking for children because they're dating you and your so really important.
Can you repeat that point? You stepped away from your mic a little bit, so we didn't.
No, I said people should understand that when these people are connecting and meeting people, they are looking for women with children because many times they're dating that woman and that child. So that conversation is extremely important to have when your children are young.
Wow, that's amazing.
Good evening, cuz Dr. Walker is absolutely correct. A child should be treated as a child and not as a grown-up too fast. We as parents parents have to be very cognizant about what we do and say in front of our children. Agreed. And I hate to have to let you go, Dr. Walker. I hate to have to.
I'm used to that. I'm
yes.
hard to let go.
But we have to work on you coming back.
Yes.
Definitely, Doctor. Some profound stuff you mentioned. Definitely.
I think somebody had asked if somebody wanted to connect with you. I don't know if you do.
Yes.
Go back to the comment. This is necessary conversation. Please know how viewers can get in touch to connect with you.
So Rod, again, you can Google me. I'm available, but you should know that I work in a child abuse clinic. So the patients I see have been abused. I don't do general pediatrics anymore. And there's a part of it where there's so many people doing general pediatrics, and there's only about 400 and something of us in this entire country that are board certified in this topic. So I'm pushed to focus on that. So I do engage.
Go Jamaican! Go Jamaican!
Yes, you know, big up. But
my Caribbean sister.
It's really important that again, people can contact me and get into these spaces where we can have conversations with parents.
John went to my 11 too. That's why he goes, of course, you went to my 11
as well.
You heard me? John went to my 11 as well.
Okay.
So that's why he's, of course, that's why you went to school. You have to go into my 11.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Doc, well, you know what? I just want to chime in my two seconds since Roger tries to take all the air and steam out.
All the time.
Not more than you, Ingrid.
There we go. Doc, thank you. I mean, from what some of the things that you are really profound, and this has a lot to do with a lot of our young people.
Andre is our next guest.
Having that impact of mental illness and things going on because of traumatic situations such as that. It has traumatized them, and as a result, certain things they shut down and they compensate by engaging in activity or things that can really determine whether they're going to be successful or not successful in life. So, Doc, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And when you look at your schedule, because I know you're busy. When you look at your schedule, look back, speak to Andre. We get you back on.
All right, cool.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you
Doc,
so much.
You got anything to say before she leaves, Doc?
No, I so appreciate this conversation. We're so happy to have you, and thank you for educating not only myself but our listeners. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Leroy just made a comment to you.
Yes, I saw that. Thanks, Leroy.
All right, God bless. Thank you, Ingrid.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You know, John, it is ridiculous. sometimes we try to protect our kids, but we protect them the
Mhm.
wrong way,
Amen.
right?
Right.
And what Dr. Descartes has stated is so important. Carla, you live. Carla, you live. All right. So, our next guest is here, which unfortunately we didn't get a chance to go in and introduce her. Talk about some of the topics that she wanted to talk about. But I'm sure that while you were in there, you were actively mentally engaged. In what Dr. Walker was talking about. So, welcome. Welcome to the Village Talk Show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on the Village. We're all about the community. We're empowering the community to live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, any point, starting from today. Success is not just spoken; it is done. What are you doing to be successful? And we're joined next by our wonderful guest, uh, Judy, Judy Winston. She is preferred to be called JJ, as you can see. She's a novelist. And Judy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, go on, JJ.
All
Is
righty. I am a licensed.
No, not that one.
I'm a licensed independent social worker, and I'm an attorney. I live here in Cleveland, Ohio. That's why you see my fireplace in the background, because it's cold. It was 70 degrees, and now the temperature's dropping.
Okay.
I was
See,
just
home of
so
former LeBron, huh?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
It was really just wonderful listening to your last guest, and it actually my books are right in line with what she was talking about. Because I wanted to raise awareness, and I use my fiction as a way to do that. I used to be the client rights officer at the Cuyahoga County Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board, and now I'm a magistrate judge in family court here in Cleveland.
Nice.
And
nice.
my book has a huge abuse theme, an incest theme. And what I was really struck by what the doctor said is about, how people groom children. And it's even deeper when it's a relative that does that, because people still love their relatives. You know what? You still love the people who are related to you, even if they do something you don't like. And if it's somebody who is in power, who takes care of you, you still need to have your clothes, you still need to have shelter, you still need to have food. And that puts that child in a really serious situation, because they still do love those people and they need them to take care of them. And it makes them even more conflicted. And that's what I wanted, to talk about in my novels.
It's very, very interesting when we really talk about, I mean, one thing we didn't even, John alluded to it, but to talk about the eternal impact, right? So lifetime impact that these type of abuses, that they did to people and to individuals, and then to follow up with it, if that makes sense. Like there's what am I doing, and then how they interacted with other people,
right.
So I'm glad that you chimed that in. So a social worker also deals with people, right? And so
Yes.
So how has been a social worker impacted your navigation to spaces where mental health issues have been prominent? And I guess you could also touch on some of what the previous authors could those abuses do lead to mental health issues. So maybe you could talk about that as well.
I would love to talk about that. That's what my novel, The Anniversary, is about. Is that when you have people, I believe that mental health issues are born out of unresolved trauma. So if you're dealing with traumatic things that are happening to you and you never have a chance to resolve them, sooner or later, they comes out. And oftentimes it comes out in a way that can be negative. And it also sometimes is mental health issues. And if you know, what we need to do is to be able to talk about what's happening, and we need to, you know, be able to have spaces that are safe for these discussions, because there's a lot of stigma, particularly in the African American community, around mental health. You know, we're told, you know what, you survived slavery. We survived so much. What you mean you got a problem? Yeah, you can handle it. You can deal with it. And sometimes we can't. And it's oftentimes what we need is the place to have a discussion. So I've seen it throughout my career, which is why I wanted to put it in a novel, have my characters deal with this, and navigate, you know, these type of issues. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, yes, you did. Yes, you did. So your book is called The Anniversary. Why is that?
That's the first book.
Uh-huh.
Yes. It's called The Anniversary because when people think about anniversaries, we often think about good things, fun things, you know, but all anniversaries are not good. An example, 9/11 is an anniversary. That is a national anniversary. I'm sorry.
Which one did you say? I didn't hear the anniversary you talk about. Because somebody.
I said not all anniversaries are good. Some anniversaries, you know, like 9/11. We have that every year. The anniversary of 9/11 is something we have, you know, all kind of different, you know, events that happen, but it actually commemorates something that was sad that happened to our country. For many people, they're dealing with issues. They're dealing with anniversaries. You don't know about them. You don't know that today was a bad day for me because this is the day 5 years ago that my father died. Or this is the day that something else happened that's bad. So that's the reason why I wanted to name it that. You know, my editor, when I first was going to name it that, was like, what are you doing? What does it mean? I don't get it. And then she read the book and said, okay, I see why you named it that. We're not going to mess with the title.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Tell us a little bit more about the book, though.
You know, my characters are dealing with a lot of different events. So the first book's The Anniversary. The second book is The Commemoration. And in the second book, I'm also dealing with human trafficking, sickle cell disease, along with the mental health. And what made me want to interject those topics into my novel is when I worked at the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County, I did have occasion to work with human trafficking victims. And what I do want people to know is that human trafficking isn't always sex. We have people who are dealing with human trafficking. There is human slavery. And I want people to know that. And I also want people to know that human trafficking just doesn't happen to women. I've dealt with all kinds of men who've been victims of human trafficking, and I've dealt with a lot of men who've been victims of sexual trauma.
You know,
and it's not always men that do it. Women do it too.
It is the issue.
Jay, if I can just interject, this is when you look at the R. Kelly situation and the impact that him being sexually abused at a young age, the way it shaped his ideology and his intellect when dealing with women. I just want to throw that out to you.
Well, he's duplicating what it is that he actually experienced. He's putting out his frustration. He's actually sharing the way that he learned. Unfortunately, it is a mental problem, but he is reacting everything that it is that he experienced.
Reenacting.
Reenacting.
So you know, you touched on a very good point, and I don't want that point to go away.
It's not going away.
No. What I'm saying is a lot of time parents overprotect their daughters and don't look at their sons.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Right? They overprotect their daughters, and one thing, you know, maybe I'm going off tangent a little bit. Even the court system does the same thing, because if a woman is charged with statutory rape on a boy, she gets less time on average than a male on a statutory rape on a girl.
Absolutely.
And so it does create a bias and an unjust system where you know, it's not, it's as a culture, we don't look at male child abuse as the same level as female child abuse. And
Well,
I want to thank
now,
you. Not even
no,
now. Even now, it's not even now. The
no,
same thing.
because now with the
No,
whole
it depends on the perpetrator. It's the
yeah,
perpetrator. If it's a male perpetrator perpetrating against a male, yes, everybody,
Yes.
you know, makes a really big deal about it. But if it's a female perpetrator, and
That's what
that
I'm
was the
getting at.
purpose of my book, because
Right.
women cause damage to boys too when they sexually abuse them. You have
Yes.
boys that are sexually abused by women, and other men and boys go, man, she taught you.
Yeah.
You lucky.
You hype up.
You
You
know-
know, it might not be penetration, but it might be other form of sexual inappropriate behaviors. You know, so that people have to look at that as well. You know, it's not just always about penetration. Well, you know, vaginal penetration, right? It's what is this abuse? You know, and I'm sure in your line of work you've come across a lot of different things that have affected your justification for writing these two books. These hello Anne-Marie, it is very prevalent. Yes, it is, right?
Yes, more prevalent than people think. And what's
Yes.
important is from a, like, as a lawyer, okay, just looking at it from a legal perspective, one reason why I think that women are not charged the way men are is they don't leave evidence the way men do. You got to remember that. Okay. But also our community looks at this like this guy got taught. He was lucky that some older woman took the interest to teach him about sex. But you can also cause people to have serious mental health issues from that when they're kids. And this is not what they should be having to deal with. Their innocence is being taken from them.
And you know, and it's not a stripe on it, but you know what, it goes the same way, right? So like a man who has multiple partners is considered a jock. A woman who has multiple partners is considered a slut. So you know, it's not even fair either way, how you look at it.
Well, you know what? Why are we concerned about how others look at it?
Because
you know, where we can't get what I'm saying is, you know, why are we getting caught up in labels, or it is that individual, you know, we don't know why she chooses to sleep with God, whatever it is. My whole point was, you know, why do we have to label? Why do we have to even concentrate on what someone thinks about you?
The reason why I said that, John, and I'm gonna allow novelist Winston to chime in, which is the perception and the look affect how we react or interact with it. So if a boy is hyped up because he is touched by an older woman, right, by a woman or a female, it has a different look than when a young girl is touched, no matter if it's by a boy of his age or older, right? It's a notch. So that's why we now, in a program like this, have to come out and say, hey, it's not right either way.
No, 100%.
Right. So we also tell children these things as well as about issues we face, asking them what they are worried about. What kind of issues you have as a child, or you are just a child, right? What are your thoughts on that? How does the affect or impact the characters? How do these things affect the impact or the characters in your books? And also, I want you to tell us, like, give us a little something more about your book while you're at it.
When you say give you something more, like why I wrote it or what it's about, like what's, so I can just understand.
I guess what Mr. Daly's trying to say, how does those events or those issues really impact your writing? You know, how those situations, those incidents, they manifest. How do they manifest through your writing?
You know, in my practice, my career, I've seen this happen over and over and over again, where I see people who are having these issues and they develop mental health problems, severe mental health problems sometimes, you know, very severe. And I've seen this over and over and over. And I said, you know what? I really do need to do something about this. And I felt that writing a story that's fiction, where people can actually relate to my characters, but also learn about mental health at the same time.
But
that was the whole purpose.
But you see, JJ, the whole point in like one of your characters, the coming out of prison, reintegrating back in society, the pros and the cons, the pitfalls that person faces. But however, you know, why did that person have to go to prison in the first place? What background, what situations led him or her to that point?
My character is involved in a serious tragedy of one of his children due to being psychotic. Because he learns some very serious information that really makes him, you know, become ill. And I think that happens a lot, particularly, you know, again, I'm only going to speak to me and my community. I've seen people with family secrets that once people find out about it, it can make them become sick. And that's what kind of happened to my character in the book, without giving too much away. You know, is that my character finds out some serious, you know, news, and it leads to a tragedy that puts him in a situation where he has to go to prison, you know. And I think that happens more often than not, because in my career, I've seen people who they find out things they didn't know about themselves. And it's more about us being open and talking to our kids, like what your last guest talked about, being open. All these secrets is what's hurting us as a community. But you think you're helping your family member by not telling them some of these things. But later on, when they find out, they're very angry. And they feel like they've been taken advantage of. And people feel like what I thought about my life is not true. And sometimes, you know, that can really manifest itself in some serious issues. So that's what the reason why I decided to put that in a book. Over the course of my career, I've seen the same themes over and over.
Yeah, and those things are so scary. You also did some work on sickle cell anemia. You're sickle cell anemia advocate. Let's talk about that.
Well, you know, just to give you guys a little bit of background, when I was 8 years old, my father died from sickle cell anemia. And then after he passed away, I found out that my grandmother passed away from sickle cell anemia. I had 2 aunts and an uncle that passed away from sickle cell anemia. And when I started dating my husband, you know, that was one of the first questions I was always taught to ask is, you know, do you have sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease? And my husband said no, because he was completely unaware that he was a sickle cell carrier. And I have a daughter now who lives with a form of sickle cell disease called hemoglobin SC. And additionally, I have a niece, a great niece, and a great nephew, all living with different forms of sickle cell disease. And so in my second book, I wanted to not only stay on my mental health theme, I wanted to introduce sickle cell into my novels, because so many of us, even African-American people and people who live here in this country, don't know anything about it. And so we're marrying people, we're unaware that we're carriers of these genes, and our children are being born with sickle cell disease. And I just want people to have awareness, and I want to be an advocate, because sometimes my daughter is not treated well, because when she goes to the hospital, they think she's opioid seeking. So this is a problem.
And novelist, you are correct. My cousin, he has a sickle cell, same situation, same thing.
You know, I want to share a very sad story. 2006, my brother and I, we had this. We were both teaching at the same place at the same time, and we started an educational tour around the world. And our first year of the trip, we took this young man to Spain. Our first trip was to Spain because it's, you know, where I went to school. So I said, let's do that. He got sick. I didn't know that we didn't know that as part of the sickle cell, he shouldn't be traveling, especially so far. Or something had to be done for him to travel. I didn't know that when taking the plane.
I know that.
And so we were in Spain, and since it is primarily a Black person disease, sickle cell anemia, it is primarily Black.
True.
When he went to Spain, they had no idea what to do. And the parents who didn't even realize that was the issue. And when I say he took sick, so at that point he was 13, maybe might have been, he's born in February, so maybe I might have been 14. And he was so ill, and you could see the pain on his face because when it takes over, it's in pain. And unfortunately, the young man, and in some way, I still feel a little bit of guilt. Like I felt like because we helped him try and re-upped, because he died 2 years later. Wow. I think either he died the day off or the day right before his birthday. Wow. One of them at 16.
Wow.
And you know, and when we talk about sickle cell, and the same doctor that was on one of her mentee, that's her specialty. Her specialty, Dr. White.
Okay.
That was on a show a couple of months ago. That's her specialty to talk about sickle cell. So I'm glad that you're advocating and bringing this up, because people need to be aware that this disease is debilitating, and understanding that you might not have any effect because you might be a carrier, right? As opposed, because if you have it, if you have the effects of it, you know, you're full blown, you know, the sickle cell gene. So you want to call it, you know, SS gene. So for those of you understanding Mendelian biology, it's if both of your carriers is SS strong, that means one of your kid will not have it. Two will the Punnett square is called. So it's one of your kid would have it, one of your kid will not, and the other two, if you have 4 children, will be carriers of the trait. Now it's supposed to be 25, 25, 50, but you know, obviously you're playing numbers, so it can work out that you have different levels. But that's basically, but it's almost a guarantee that if you have 4 children, one of them will end up with the entire sickle cell. So thank you for advocating for that. How would people know and hear about your books?
Well, my books are everywhere. You can Google me, novelist JJ Winston. My books are at Amazon. My books are at Walmart. My books are all over the web. The name of them are The Anniversary and The Commemoration. And I see somebody wrote something that says you have to do background research on the people you marry. And I agree. But the thing is, you always are going to be
hard, though. That's hard, isn't it?
Tell you that. You know, my husband was unaware that he was a carrier. And I'm going to be honest, just to go back to that, I never even heard of hemoglobin SC. I was always told about sickle cell anemia. What I wanted to use my books to do is to let people know there are more than one kind of sickle cell disease. There's actually several sickle cell diseases. And, you know, you may not even realize you're a carrier of one of these genes. So I just want people to be aware of that, because folks sometimes don't know. But you can find my books at my website. My website is www.novelistjjwinston.com. And, you know, I'm available always to speak to all these different issues and topics. I have a YouTube channel, and I have just, you know.
Andre wants you to repeat that so you can put it up on the screen.
Okay. It's www.novelistjjwinston.com. That's my website. And I'm always, you know, you can buy directly from me and get a autographed copy of my books. And I have something called a book bundle that people really, really like. You know, where I put all 3 books together.
What's a book bundle?
You get all 3 of my books for a very discounted price, because I have two novels and a workbook. And the workbook I put together because people were going, they really loved my books. But what they were having problems with is they really wanted to know more about what to do when faced with the mental health crisis. So I put a lot of stuff in my book to help people.
You know
Because,
what?
yes.
Before you leave, can you elaborate more on ways that, we could support those with mental health? What are some ways that you can, based on your experience and what you've encountered, what are some ways we can actually support those with mental health?
There's a program called the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, also known as NAMI. They do an awesome program called Family to Family. It's all over the country. If you have a relative, a family member, or even yourself who's dealing with the mental health issue, then you should actually get in touch with that program. The Family to Family is a free program, and it teaches us about what to do to make our spaces conducive to good mental health. Also, I just think that you can find a support group. I think that talking is a good way to get the kind of help you need. People need to talk about it. All this secrecy is bad, but we also need to understand that stigma is real.
Yes.
And stigma leads to discrimination, and it also leads to prejudice. People are treated badly. Folks are afraid of people when they think there's something going on with them and their mental health. But particularly during this COVID environment we live in, this is really just shining the light on how many people are dealing with anxiety and all these other issues. It's a scary time. Folks are afraid, about the pandemic. So, we just really need to create that type of space in our homes too, to say, what's going on? And it's okay to tell me, like the doctor said earlier, if there's somebody trying to do something to you, saying something to you, you can always come and talk to me. Make sure kids feel safe in doing that.
That's
I
true.
hope I answered the question.
You did. Thank you. Thank you for the organization support.
I just want to just jump in.
Go ahead.
Wait. John is interrupting?
I just want to jump in. Since we're on this is another topic. Your thoughts on this whole Kyle Rittenhouse case? A young woman in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
When you ask me my thoughts, you mean what? What am I thinking about? What's happening with
the case?
The case legally, but also the mental aspects, if they exist for a young man 17 years old to engage into behavior like that, is what I'm just trying to. What
I'm
was
going to ask a question, John. Where was his parents? Where was his parents? That's what I want to know. I want to know where the parental intervention was. I'm a parent. My kid couldn't walk out the house with an AK-47 and go nowhere at 17. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. But I'm just going to be honest. I can't really speak legally about the case as a judge. I can't.
Okay. Yes.
Our rules.
Wait, I do have a question about the judge thing. I do. I'm sorry. I have to ask, but you could tell me if you can't legally understand it. Or you can't really speak on it. Sorry.
Okay.
Don't talk about marijuana. Don't talk about no marijuana.
No, I'm not talking about marijuana. That's you and John's topic. When the judge admonished the prosecutor,
I would admonish him.
Yes, he did the right thing. I can speak to that.
You can speak to that. He did the right thing.
Because he did the right thing. You can't, as a prosecutor, tell somebody, like, you can't bring that up in court and say somebody didn't speak, because you don't have to speak. It's a violation of your constitutional rights. When they read you your rights, that's the first thing they tell you, is you have a right to remain silent. That anything you can.
Go ahead, finish up. That you were reading Miranda right.
And it will be used against you in the court of law. They tell you it can and will be used against you. So you have a right, you know, if you say I'm not saying anything, get my lawyer, you have a right to that constitutionally.
What I guess I watch a lot of Perry Mason. I'm sorry, I know I'm segueing a little bit from the book, but it's like the lawyer, the defense attorney wasn't objecting. It was like the judge was objecting.
Because he
violated. And he's supposed to, because it's a violation. You can get a mistrial for that. That's a mistrial. That can get you a mistrial. Like he said, every first-year law student knows that. That's one of the first things they teach you is that when somebody is arrested and they employ their right to be quiet and be silent, you can't bring that up and use it against them in court. Because I don't need to say anything if I don't want to. So you know what? If the judge didn't do it and you just went on, later on, somebody could get whatever verdict thrown out based on that. That's why he made such a big deal about it and, you know, got on the prosecutor for it.
Yeah, he was on him like white on rice.
Yeah, but that prosecutors, when they prosecute these cases, they play loose with the rules.
They did.
Yeah,
a little bit. I can say I didn't see all of it. I only saw a little bit, but that's something I think any jurist would do.
Yeah,
and then I
watch about 4 hours.
Put something in. If I tell you you can't introduce some evidence and then you try to introduce it, yeah, you're gonna get yelled at. Even with me, and I'm pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that judge was on fire. Yes, I was watching it actually when he said, and the first time I was like, all right, when he asked the jurors to leave. The second time, and he had the look on his face, I knew he was going to rip somebody something new.
And the prosecutor said, "I made a good faith."
Yeah. He ripped them a new. Yeah, he did. You know, novice. What do you hope people will take from your books? So let's finish up with that. And any final thoughts that you have?
You know what? I'm hoping that people use my novels as a vehicle to explore mental health more, to understand how trauma plays a role in our mental health, so that we can try to, you know, make spaces for our children and our family members where they're not experiencing trauma. You know, I think I was saying to you in one of our pre-shows a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, that, you know, I went to a training once about why, you know, sexual assault seems to happen in African-American families more often than other families. There's nothing that says that that's true. But what we do have is times where we have a lot of people living with us, family members, people around our children who can harm our kids. We really need to be, you know, cognitive of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that people will learn, you know, about mental health. I'm hoping people will learn more about human trafficking and to try to make sure our children are not victims of that. And mostly, you know, on top of it is I want people to know about sickle cell disease. And I want people to support all of these subjects with their time, with their money, and with their resources. Go to my website, get my free newsletter.
All right, appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, we had been talking to novelist J.J. Winston. You know, she is an author, she's a novelist, she's an attorney, she's a judge, and, you know, a social worker. And you know what? Most of all, a wealth of information is talk about mental health and talk about sickle cell anemia and what it's like, how you deal with it. Check her out on her website, which is, again, Andre's just going to pull that up on screen so everybody can reach out to her and talk to her at www.novelistjjwinston.com. God bless you and thank you for joining us in the village.
Thank you, novelist.
Thank you for having me. You all have an awesome Thanksgiving, okay, and a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Enjoy the fireplace behind you.
Thank you. It's cold, girl. It's about to be a blizzard here. I live in Cleveland. The weather changes every moment.
You know, I don't worry. It's cold. It's getting chilly out here too in New York. Don't worry about it. That's why I have to wear my hat. By the way, you like my hat?
I know. That's right.
All right. Thank you, John.
It's good to see you guys. Thank you again.
All right. Take care, Judy.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I'm wondering though, right, John?
Him not answer the question.
Well, John, I was wondering something. I hear he's not answering. He goes, I defended myself. John, let me ask you a question. Do you think that cry was real or unreal? Why are you laughing?
Because, oh Lord, have mercy.
What's your thought, Dr. Brown? While John
real.
gathers his thought.
It was real.
That was real.
It was real, of course.
You think so?
If you know you're going to possibly.
Well, that's what I'm
no,
saying. That's why I don't
but-
think it was real. I feel like
no,
he's like, yo,
no.
dog, I am in trouble. Because when do you normally put a witness on trial?
Put it this way, he had to go on this. In this instance, the defense for his affirmative defense for self-defense is strong. And the only one who can really bring that defense out is the actual defendant in this instance, in this case. And just looking at this case, you know what? Let's step back and let's look at this case. And you have to have everything that plays out. First of all, we know you don't even live in Wisconsin. You come from another state. You come with an AK-47. We all know that. The question is, irrespective of that, when he defended himself, was he the aggressor? Did he create this? Did he create the situation? Or was the actual victim created the situation and he reacted to defend himself? I got it. You have a white boy, 17. If it was a black kid, he wouldn't have never made it to Wisconsin with an AK-47. With a pistol, he would have never made it. But with an AK-47, he wouldn't have made it down the block. We all know that. We know that it would have been different for another young black boy, 17 years old, who did the actual same thing he did, because that young black man would not have survived.
Different rules for different folks.
And we know that in America. I don't want to hear, oh no. We know the realization that existed. The point is, villagers and ladies and gentlemen, we have to look at the instant this happened. Was he the aggressor? Or was the victim the aggressor? If the victim was the aggressor and threatened him with deadly force bodily harm, at that point in time, that young man had a right to defend himself, to protect him from that. And that's what it boils down.
Listen, Star Girl. Star Girl, you know what? Your thoughts, and maybe that's why we're good friends. Your thoughts and mine are aligned. Kyle is a great actor. Right? He doesn't have mental issues either. Yeah, well, I'm going to disagree with that part.
He does have a mental. He does have mental issues.
It's called a racist issue. He had an illegal gun at 17, confirmed. He came prepared to do what he did. Now, of all the guns you can prepare, an AK-47 to go hunting.
So irrespective of what he had,
I don't care about irrespective of nothing. You came with intent that you want to hurt somebody. And the moment you get the opportunity, it's like what's that guy name in Florida? Zimmerman.
Yep.
To stand your ground, foolishness. I killed him on stand your ground. And he got off. Right? He got off. Right? But at the end of the day, I want to look for whatever excuse it is. And then what was on that subject.
Well, Roger, do you know what do you know the elements of self-defense?
Of course I do.
So,
but I might not know it like you, but I know what's up.
As long as that young man
is self-preservation, that's what it
not put himself in a position where he was the aggressor. You might say that his intent was to create.
I agree, and that the judge shut that down too.
To create a situation where he created the situation by coming there with an AK-47, knowing that what was going on over there in Wisconsin, he came there, he knew, and his intent was to harm someone. However, if you look at the video, and even the daggone witness, the witness that he shot and survived, said, yes, I pointed a gun.
Yes, he did.
At him. before he shot me. So if you're gonna point a gun at me,
I agree. I'm not saying no.
And then the witness comes on Good Morning America and recants and says, no, that wasn't the case. I didn't, my arm was shattered and I couldn't have. So why didn't you say that on the witness stand?
He looked like a fool.
And then the prosecution put a witness on that was more favorable to the defense. You know what? You talk about
the prosecution looks really bad right now.
You know what? But prosecutors always play loose with the rules, and the majority of the time, these judges allow them to do that. The defense does not have that leeway to do those things. They allow evidence that should not have it be introduced in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You have a judge who, what's interesting to me, and when this judge, why can't we go victims? Who that?
Oh,
the judge's music on his video.
Oh, Lord.
I don't know.
I didn't know that. Od. That would be kind of funny though. Are you just? Wait, I want to know, Olivia. Are you just saying that, or is it really true?
Yeah, if it's true, that's a different story. We know what's going on.
Are you just saying that though? Because that would be funny.
But irrespective of,
you're this damn irrespective. No, I don't respect it.
Because you don't want to be the truth. That's what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to point something out. And John,
hold on.
Wait.
Before you said point anything out, Doc, we want your feedback on this, Doc.
On this case, I want to talk about something else.
I told you.
Why can't we talk about this?
I told you.
This is what.
But I told you she was going to do that.
Why you want to talk about something
Doc
else?
talks about nothing controversial.
Doc, this is.
That's not true.
Nothing controversial.
That is not
wait,
true.
Hold on. I don't know if you heard when I said she's not going to talk about it. I don't know if you heard when I said
that is not true.
Yeah, okay, all right. Prove me wrong right now.
So let's hear it, Doc.
Prove me wrong right now.
Come on, Doc. What's your thoughts?
No, wait. Maybe what she wants to talk about is controversial. Let's ask her. What do you want to talk about?
I want to wish my friend Horace.
All right, whatever. Go move. Right, you get to that. I give you a chance to do that. But what? And also this Ahmaud Arbery thing, right?
Yes.
What the hell is this?
Yeah,
when they're talking about jurors and one black person. Give me.
I have a problem with that case. I truly do have a problem.
No, but okay, John. So I have to ask you because you might know more than me. Why are they? I mean, and he could get off with it. They could get off with it. The pre-Civil War slavery law that never came off the books that they're applying as their rule for defense. I forgot the name of can you look up the name of the law for me?
What are they saying?
They're saying that the people who shot him had the right to do it because of this law. Defense. I don't remember what the law is, so somebody can look up real fast and tell me what the law is. Andres, do the search if anybody find it faster. So they're saying that they should have been allowed. What they did it under the basis of this law. Like they actually knew that this law existed pre-Civil War.
You know what my problem with both of these cases are? All these white men are defending themselves, to say, hey, we're innocent, we didn't do it, blah, 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 or we shouldn't be held to the same thing. And any black individual that come close to anything like that will get the death penalty. So I have a problem with that.
So here's something that I say that's controversial. Most black people don't know what self-defense is.
I disagree.
No, they don't. Most black people believe if you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. That's not self-defense. Self-defense is imminent danger. My life, my livelihood, my family, my personal property. Not even like if I see somebody destroying my store, my house,
right,
is in danger, and I have to defend it. Because I punch you in your face and you don't like it, it's not self-defense. Oh, he hit me.
But before you can use self-defense, you have to be put in a situation where your first initial action, you have to retreat.
Yes, exactly.
You have to retreat.
You have to stand down.
And if at that point in time, once you have retreated and the aggressor and eminent deadly force is still available, at that point in time, you can defend yourself with deadly force to prevent what you perceive is going to come.
Yes, because it's at that point it becomes my life or yours, right? And so a lot of times, like, you know, it's not like, oh, if you hit me, all I want you to do is hit me. No, that's not how it works. Even if the person hits you, still, if you get hit, that's your fault. I'm gonna tell nobody to hit me first so I can hit you back and call self-defense. That is stupid. And for all the parents out there who tell their kids, oh, if somebody hits you, hit them back. Once they hit you, hit them back. You have the right to hit. No, that is called fighting, ladies and gentlemen. It is called fighting, not self-defense, but fighting. It's disrespectful, but it is fighting. Let's say again, somebody hits you, you back up. You might seem like a punk, but you back up. If the person comes to you and try to do damage and you pick up a brick and hit them because you're now defending yourself, that's different. But somebody, again, let me say it one more time. If somebody pulls out a knife and cuts you or make an attempt to cut you, to shoot them, that's considered to be somewhat self-defense. Dependent. It's a gray area. But somebody takes out a knife and you take it and go pow. That's not self-defense. The person did nothing with the knife. If the punch is, approaching you, and anything can be used as a weapon, a car. Oh, I just hit them with a car. I love that one. I'm gonna hit them with a bat. Oh, it's not no. Anything you use is considered a weapon. It's just different.
Your analogy with a knife sounds like it's saying, if they cut you and then now you respond as self-defense.
If they cut you, what do you mean by cut you?
With the knife.
If they slice you,
yeah, and you defend yourself.
And you defend
back or something, that's self-defense.
Yes, so, to a certain extent.
So you see the knife, and you.
So for example, somebody cuts you the knife and runs away, you shoot them. That's not self-defense. Right, that's not self-defense.
The threat, the imminent threat.
Right. If the threat has to be consistent in order for it to be self-defense, no matter what they're using. They could be using stones. If they keep throwing stones at you, it can eventually cause irreparable damage, right? Yes, we saw that, Eddie, and the person was so Eddie wrote that person was shot dead by police on the Bell Park near Cropsey Avenue.
What was that about?
I'm trying to get some of the information just reported by ABC News. It was done about 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, around 5 o'clock on the Bell Parkway.
So it was like a traffic stop.
Yeah, so it was the person that was stopped was speeding.
Yeah.
I believe he said it was a 65-year-old man.
Yeah, so police at NYPD have stopped a Jeep for speeding, but as he approached the vehicle, the suspect sped away. Officer followed the driver and put her unmarked vehicle in front of his car. The suspect rear-ended the officer and continued eastbound on the highway.
Oh, so they used the weapon, the car as a weapon.
Yeah, the officer requested backup, and with the help of an additional highway unit, they pulled the vehicle over 200 yards east of the Bay Parkway Avenue entrance.
And then?
A 65-year-old man, one person in a Jeep, got out and moved toward the officers with a gun.
Oh, so the person had a gun.
Yeah, officers told the man to drop the gun, but he continued moving towards them.
That's what we're talking about. That's not self-defense. Okay, that's not self-defense.
So that was a 65-year-old person?
Yeah. I don't care how old you are, you have a gun.
Well, the police then fired multiple rounds.
It doesn't matter.
Struck him several times.
And that's going to be what you call a clean shooting, based upon what you're reading. Right, based upon what you're saying, that sounds like a clean shooting. So the man can't say he's defending.
Hold your horses, Mr. Daly. We don't know.
I said
all the facts.
No.
Are not in yet.
No. I said based upon what he's reading. Clearly, we know, there has to be an investigation.
Well, you know what? Our mayor-elect was talking about, had a back and forth with the Black Lives Matter individuals about they're holding him accountable if he put certain units back into play, and they're threatening to state riots and bloodshed, and I think that's so disrespectful because
and on top of the fact that the man is not even mayor yet, he's mayor-elect.
Yeah.
right,
And him,
because
it's-
they feel that they work too hard to abolish this unit of the police department, and for him to bring it back, you know, to threaten with bloodshed and rioting is like over the top. So that's their own agenda.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing that happened. You want to comment on that, and we can maybe move on to the next one.
We ain't got time to move on to the next one.
4 minutes.
No, we have a couple minutes. If you want to comment on that, and I'll move on to the next. You know, I have a friend. I'm gonna call her out right now. She's a nurse, and I know she's listening, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And she and I always complain.
Because
right.
You're hesitant, right? So
Yeah, I'm not gonna call her name. I'm not gonna call her out like that. And she's like, "Oh, being a nurse is so difficult, so hard, and it's dangerous." And a police officer say, "You know what? No matter what job you're doing, is dangerous." In Iowa, 2 16-year-old students have been arrested and charged with the murder of a Spanish teacher at their school.
Yeah, they really don't like Spanish.
Dohima Graber was reported missing several hours before her body was discovered in a nearby park. Both students were charged with homicide in the first degree and the conspiracy to commit homicide. Counsel would be available at the school community. Miller and Goodale would be there. Court appeared the students Miller and Goodale.
I wonder what triggered that.
On November 12th, both are being held on $1 million bail.
I wonder what triggered the grades.
I wonder what triggered it too. No, it's Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah,
teacher?
it could have been a
Grades.
grade too, but like seriously.
But the only reason I brought that up is I try to tell people, and it's like students sometimes know exactly what they're doing, and it's the job of a teacher. You can't even do nothing. You can't even do nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this.
Mm-hmm.
And they get she's a nurse. She get, unfortunately, the patients, unfortunate with the syringe. She's in a difficult situation. I'm not minimizing anything that she goes through.
Right.
That's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to show that but once you deal with John Brown public,
once you deal with other individuals, yes.
Yep. No matter what you do, your police officer, your teacher, your MTA worker, conductor, nurse, doctor, and their mental health, and as all of our guests spoke about, mental health is a serious issue, and you don't know from when somebody is coming,
especially on the streets too. People look normal, but they're not. And they might be in attack mode when you tell them, hey, you know what? You might not want to do something, or you might want to protect this, or they're in full attack mode. This pandemic has really caused people to go over the edge. I'm not going to only blame it on the pandemic, but I think it
has had a major effect. Yes.
Yeah. So just be careful out there, man. Be careful.
It goes, Mr. Daly, your Spanish teacher, does that resonate? Of course it resonates. Not because I'm a Spanish teacher. It resonates because I was a teacher.
Anyway, I want to go back to my shout out to my friend, because it's only a minute left. To Horace, one of our listeners. Happy birthday, man.
Mr. Taylor, is his birthday?
Mr. Taylor, yes. Today's his birthday. Today.
Happy birthday. How comes I didn't see him on today? Where you at, Horace? Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday. While
the village.
While we
we're
at
the
it.
Village. We're success.
Right. While we at it, before you do that, wishing happy birthday also to my aunt, Auntie Bev, whose birthday was on Monday past, and a happy birthday to my Uncle Trevor, whose birthday will be on Monday coming.
And also, I just want to send a shout out to my friend's family, Mr. Cleveland Woods. He passed away last week. He was buried yesterday, and he really did, went to his funeral yesterday, and he really impacted the lives of a lot of young people in the Lawrence School District out in Long Island. So big up to Mr. Woods and big up to Tilden Knights who showed up and represented.
Yeah, he went to Tilden?
Yes.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you. Corey offers his condolences. I want to thank you for listening, watching, viewing, hearing, sharing the Village Talk Show. I am Roderick Daly, your host, John Sampson, our co-host, Dr. Joanne Bryant, our co-hostess, where the Village is all about the community. We're dedicated to empowering the community to help live a healthy, safe, and financially capable life through education, helping each one of us in realizing our dreams at any age, at any point, starting from today. Success is not just spoken, it is done. We'll see you next week. And again, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there.
Yes,
Bless.
thank you.
God bless.
Be safe.